Hi everyone, how's it going? Today let's build the Vespid 7-second scale early Hetzer. I chose this kit because I liked the version depicted, the Chwat, if this is the right way to say it, on the box lid, and I thought that would be a nice and quick build. However, I soon discovered after shallow research that there is a big story behind it, and build it out of the box will be kind of tons of mistakes. Anyway, here is an abstract of Chwat's history. This tank was captured during the Warsaw Uprising in 1944, very damaged and out of combat capability. The Polish soldiers managed to repair and put the tank back on its own tracks, using it in the barricades around the Polish resistance HQ. However, it was decided to keep it out of the barricades and under the post officer building. Later, the surrounding buildings were bombarded by the Germans, destroying them and covering Chwats in rubble. Well, which should be a quick and fun build turned into some kit modifications and damage, trying to follow some pictures I found. Well, let's begin. The box art is really eye-catchy, and the quality of the Jagdpanther in the previous project gave me some fuel to buy this kit. Of course, I also like this tank, which is the main reason for getting it. Anyway, let's take a quick look on the box content, starting by the instructions, which are in a high-quality printing and satin paper brochure. The instructions seems to be quite easy to follow, and two painting markings are provided, one of which is the Chwat, which seems to have inverted colors regarding the camouflage blobs and its contours when compared to a museum tank. The injection quality is quite nice, with crispy details as you can see on the wheels. The trucks are equally in good and crispy details injection, and come in link-by-length style. The mantlet have a nice cast and steel texture, and the lower hull and backplate shows also some nice details. The same can be said for the upper hull and other features, like the tools for example. However, the injection gates are a bit big for the small parts, and looking closer there are some seam lines that must be dealt with before gluing it in place. But in an overall manner the details are quite impressive for such a small vehicle. The MG34, for sure, beats many resin and metal aftermarket products out there. And there is also a PE sheet with some side skirts, grills, handles and other features, a metal gun, steel cables and a small decal sheet. The whole score system of this kit is on the descriptions, so feel free to check it out. Now let's see how it comes together. I started with the lower hull and the suspension arms. Not a lot of parts, and all of them fit nicely in place. There's no much effort here, really. Just put the part in place and fix it with extra thin cement. The PE parts also have a nice fitting. I just put a little amount of black super glue to ensure its fixation, and later I cleaned the excess with the bonder. Looking some walk-arounds, I saw these triangular shape reinforcements on the front. That lack on the kit. So I cut some plastic cards on the shape and glued them in place. Fortunately, the Hetzer doesn't have a lot of wheels, which made the task of cleaning them much more pleasant. I just added some scratch and damage on the rubber rings with a blunt blade. On the back plate of the rear lower hull, I had to make some modifications to meet the pictures I found from the Chwat. It wasn't possible to make all damage you can see on the photo, at least I didn't want to put so much effort on it. Well, but this backplate is an area that called my attention. As you can see in this period picture, there are no spare tracks nor steel cables, and what I think is the cover on the center is also missing. This is not shown in the instructions, so I made a new one by drilling a hole in the middle of the circular plate, and then with a rotary tool as a lathe, I made a new center part of brass, gluing some plastic rods around to simulate the bolts and then cutting them to size. When I finish it, after some few hours of work, I figured out that there is a part exactly of what I did in the provided sprues, but it is indicated as not to use part. Well, I kept what I did, but here is a heads up for you guys that have this kit or want to buy it. The spare tracks holders were thinned, because they are a bit thick, especially for the purpose of using them without the spare tracks. So I thinned them with a blunt blade and a sandpaper. The injected handles were substituted by new ones made from 0.2mm copper wires. And the mudguards were also thinned on the edges using the hobby knife and sanding tools. Other photo-etched and plastic parts were also added to the upper hull. The metal gun was fixed on the mantlet with black bonder, and later the mantlet were fixed on the upper hull with cement. There is a small gap in this fitting, but easily solved with some filling. As the Chwat was a capture vehicle after some nasty battle, it was quite damaged, so many of the optics, tools and other features that comes with the kit were not used. The roof was very damaged on the photo, and that must appear on the kit. So I grabbed a razor saw blade and cut around the weld lines on the roof plate, thinning the edge from the inside with a rotary tool. Then I used some cement to soften a little bit the plastic, and with some brute force I bent the roof until I was satisfied. Later I painted the interior with glossy black to hide the interior and reduce the appearance of damaged plastic. Another apparent damage is on the right side of the casemate. It seemed to get cracked near the front of the tank. I didn't want to completely cut it, as I made with the roof, because the plastic is too thick in this area. So I used a scribing tool to carve the plastic, smoothing only one side, giving the impression of the crack. Yeah, not the best for sure, but it should get better with the paint job later, hopefully. Keep moving. The lower and upper hull were glued together, and the mudguards were also added. Other parts were thinned and damaged to resemble the real tank. I drilled some holes on the headlight and the casemates to add the power cable, made of a 0.2mm lead wire. The tool straps were made of 0.1mm copper sheet, cut in strips of 1mm width, and glued with superglue. Also, some of the straps received a strip of lead and copper wires to simulate its locking mechanisms. On the top of the right mudguard, there is a box in the kit's part, but it is missing on the Chwat. Just a lock pin is visible, and it was made with a 0.2mm copper wire. Now to the tracks. This time it was much less painful due to an advice of a kind viewer of the Yag Painter assembling video. I put all pieces in the back of a tape, holding the parts in place and together. Then with a thin cement I slightly glued them. Then carefully I removed the tracks from the tape, and with another small drop of cement on the contact between the tracks parts, I could bend them in the shape I wanted. Much easier this way. On the sprockets wheels, I placed the tracks on its spots and used a bit of cement to hold the tracks on shape and curve of the wheels. The muffler grill, made of photo-etched, was put on shape using the hobby knife handle, pressing and holding it over the cutting mat until it got the circular shape, and later glued on place. And finally, on the rear mudguards, I bent some of the plastic soaked in thin cement to simulate it as damaged, like in the picture. And here is the Vespid 7-second scale Hetzer assembled, or at least most of it. I had to make a lot of modifications as it's supposed to be a miniature of the capture vehicle, the Chwat. So many of the provided plastic parts weren't used, like the tools, optics and MG34. The kit is quite nice and fun to build, and can be assembled just out of the box. However, you should take care with the provided profiles, as one of them is not really correct, both in accessories and painting scheme. The other I didn't check, because I was too certain to make the Chwat version. There are a lot of details, but many seam lines that demand some time and care. The plastic thickness is okay, but there are some places they must be thinned, like the mudguards, if you want to give a more realistic look to the model. Of course, I faced many other problems that I kind of create them in order to make it as similar to the capture vehicle. But there is a still long way to see if it will be, aka the painting job and the base. Anyway, scenes for the next chapters. And here are some pictures of the assembled vehicle. I didn't put the wheels, tracks and side skirts on the model yet, because I couldn't find a way to fix it in place that are strong enough to hold them in place, without being something too strong that prevents me to disassemble them for the painting. Well, thanks for watching this video and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video. Cheers!